I'm Sian Allen and I run the Arts Live Rural Touring Scheme, which covers Shropshire and Herefordshire.
I'm Claire Marshall and I run Carter Cove, which is the rural touring scheme in Cornwall.
I'm Imogen Weatherly and I work with Claire on Carter Cove and Villages in Action, which is the rural touring scheme in parts of Devon.
I'm Stephie Jessup. I am the NRTF Communications Manager and I'm also the Marketing Manager for the Rural Touring Dance Initiative, and I also work for Spot on Lancashire, which is Lancashire Rural Touring Scheme.
And I'm Holly Lombardo and I'm the Director of the National Rural Touring Forum. And this week we're celebrating Village Halls Week, which is part of ACRE's initiative about raising awareness of the importance of them. And with rural touring, we don't just use village halls, but they are a big part of what everybody does. So, Sian, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your scheme does, and do you use village halls?
Of course we use village halls. We use community spaces, which are primarily village halls. We put on, like other rural touring schemes, we put on live performances, live professional performances in non-theatre dedicated spaces. We also run Flicks and Sticks, which is a massive touring cinema circuit, so which would not exist without village halls.
Yeah, so in Cornwall we've got a network of about 85 village hall and community spaces. Like Sian, we use lots of different kinds of spaces, but actually the community is the heart of it, whether it's a school or whether it's a town hall or a village hall. It's all about the community. And in Devon, which is our neighbouring scheme geographically, they closed, or they stopped offering shows last year. So we realised that there was going to be a big gap in between Cornwall and the rest of the country. So we stepped in to try and keep that network alive, because actually that network of villages had been very active for quite a number of years, and we didn't want to lose that sort of momentum of those people. So we sort of cast a net out across the border to Devon, and we got Imogen to help us run that scheme. So we've kept that network alive in Devon as well as Cornwall.
And how many shows a year do you programme?
Well, we have probably about 120 in Cornwall, and well, slightly less in Devon, maybe somewhere between 60 and 70 in Devon.
Wow, that's a lot. And that's spring and autumn generally, the season. And Stephie, in a sec I'll get to you, but Sian, how many shows do you guys programme a year?
Around 100, primarily September through to March, April, but we also do some in May, and occasionally we do outdoor stuff in the summer. We try and augment and work with other people who are doing things to beef up their offer, and we've had projects where we do shows that go to village fetes and things as well. Brilliant.
What about you at Spot On, Stephie?
We programme for 2 months each season now, so we condensed ours right down, and we do about I think it's about 70 shows a year. I think you're speaking to Lindsay later in the week, so she can tell you definitely. But yeah, so we also work with libraries, which are a massive part of our scheme now, which helps us secure dates across the week and not just Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, cool. And as programmers, what do you find is is there a biggest challenge for you as programmers? Anyone can answer that.
I think the biggest challenge is matching the show to the space, to the community. So getting that trinity working. So you can have a fantastic show that you know would work brilliantly in a particular hall, but if that promoter and that committee and that audience are going to turn out for it, it's not the right place. So I think it's just that in-depth, long-term knowledge of your spaces, your people and your artists that is about the programming magic, really, and making that really work effectively. How about you two?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think our promoters, a lot of them have been doing it for a long time, so there's a lot of trust between them and their audiences. And we try to offer a very broad range of different types of shows on our menu for them to choose. It's quite, you know, it's very democratic. They choose what they think will work in their group. But there are obviously shows that we think, I really want that to get booked. Please book it. And then,
I think it's to do with both of those things. It's, for me, it's the marketing. That's obviously where I come from a lot of the time. But you can see a great show, whether it's at the NRTF conference or Edinburgh, and know that it would be brilliant for a certain venue or a certain promoter. But if, when the marketing material comes across, it's not speaking the correct language, or it's not getting across the message that you saw and you loved, it can be really hard to communicate that. And that's from like selling it to the village hall, but also for them to then sell it to their audience.
And not compromise the artist or make them feel like they're selling themselves short by you taking a slightly different spin on what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if so we get asked a lot by artists, how is the best way to contact all of the schemes or you individually? And we tell them to make sure that they know the schemes, and they're all individual and they're all different, and they need to consider that, and not one email will blanket everyone. But what would you say to an artist who's never rural toured before? What would they expect, and how would they get into it?
I think my suggestion, and this is so on brand, I'm going to laugh at it, is to look at the NRTF website, and there's so much information on there that's like about all the rural touring schemes and about how it works, like in general, and just having that knowledge before you jump in and go, oh hello, I'm a folk duo and I'd like to be on your scheme, but I don't really know how.
Yeah.
Getting information from you at the NRTF, I think, is a really good place to start.
Good answer, thanks.
I'd also tell them, suggest that they went to see some rural touring shows in different venues, just as not as a secret shopper. Just go as a member of the audience and then work out whether it's for them, because it isn't for every artist. Because there is nowhere to hide in rural touring. I would say there's no stage door. You know, you can't run away if it all goes badly. So I think you really need to think, I love this situation and I want to work in this situation. And also make friends with your nearest touring scheme. So if you go to a couple of shows and you like it, get in touch with your nearest touring scheme and ask them round for a cup of coffee, or if they'll meet you at a show. Because that's where you're going to get most. That's where I've helped artists, really, is when they start to build up a bit of relationship with you. Even if you don't like their work, you can talk about principles and parameters and how they might make it appealing.
Yeah, my advice would be that it's a conversation. We get a lot of artists sending one email going and sort of saying, oh, can we be programmed in autumn? And we may have already programmed autumn, and then we don't hear from them again. And we have so many artists that it's not always possible to follow up everyone, even if we loved what they offered us. Or we love what they've done and we've seen a show, but we just know it's too big. It's about having a conversation and planning so far in advance. So sometimes if you want to get programmed, but you're not making a small show at the moment, it's still worth talking to us now, because that means we can build in our knowledge to your next production, and in 2 years down the line, make something together that's going to work. It's not just oh, but I never hear back from them, so I'm not contacting them again. It's about keeping that conversation going. And like Sian said, speaking to us, inviting us to things, and going to see stuff yourself.
And funding wise as well, what funding models do you all sit with? How does that work?
Well, we have funding from the Arts Council and from Cornwall Council, and we subsidise all of the shows to the village hall. So we pay the artist fee, the village hall then pays us a split of the box office. So they keep a little bit for themselves, and all of their income from refreshments and raffles and whatever other activity they do is theirs to keep, and it makes a sustainable model for the village and for us.
Yeah.
We're an NPO, so we're funded by the Arts Council, and we're also funded by local council. And in terms of how we pass that on, we operate a tiered system. So we send out a menu of shows, and within those shows, some are tier 1, which means the village hall or whichever space it is that takes it will get a full guarantee against loss. Tier 2, they get up to 50% guarantee against loss, and tier 3 artists where either the fee is quite small or it's a surefire win with your audiences, and that's no guarantee against loss. So that way we can help those village halls taking a risk on the stuff that is a bit riskier or brand new, and it means we invite new people into the scheme as well, while continuing to programme things that we know our audiences love and that the village halls love.
That's a really good system. Yeah. How about you?
Well, that's a big element of what we do, is balancing out risk with range, because obviously if you put all the risk onto the promoters, they're going to go for the surefire hits, and then that makes quite a dull programme, which probably wouldn't appease our funders, you know, who are primarily the Arts Council, a little tiny bit from the council, but that has diminished so much in recent years. We've lost, you know, tens of thousands of pounds of support. We operate an A and B system, so the shows that are most likely to be bankers and get a good broad appeal are classified as an A show, and the B shows, all children's shows are B shows, because we want people to take children's shows and they're never going to cover their costs, or ones that are artistically more challenging, I would say interesting, or a different art form, or for some reason wouldn't be your first pick. So our promoters can choose one show which can be A or B, but if they want a second show it has to be a B show, and that's the way we get our range into our programme. We've been doing that for over 10 years.
Yeah, great. This is the top tip. And kind of not finally, but nearly finally, I'm looking for anecdotal, kind of one of your best memories. I know some of you have been doing this a long time with rural touring, and then maybe there's something that really stands out that kind of keeps you in the rural touring sector, that just means that you love it so much. Anyone?
There's too many.
Too many.
Yeah. Oh, so many. I get quite emotional at shows sometimes. What I really love is I nearly always sit at the back of the auditorium in the loosest possible sense, because I really love to watch the reaction. I love, what for me really matters is watching what happens when the artist gives something and the audience responds, and you get this kind of dynamic. I think of it like a wave breaking on the shore, and it's where that wave breaks, I just think, oh my god, that's amazing. So that sort of the dialogue between the audience and artist is what really makes it. But I think my first standing ovation gave me a bit of a you know, when the whole hall just rose up and you think, oh yes, I love my job.
Yeah. Do you remember what show it was?
That one was quite, I've had lots of occasional standing up, but this one, the whole hall stood up for Fol Espoir, which was instructions for American servicemen in England. And they end up with this absolutely ridiculous hybrid Morris dance comes sort of jazz dance, and the whole audience is doing it and waving hankies, and it's just hilarious.
That sounds amazing.
And that's about to go on to Off-Broadway, actually.
Oh wow, is it?
Yeah.
Wow,
So not just me that likes it.
Yeah, we had that, and it went down really well.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, go on, Stephie.
I was just saying we had that show as well, and it went really well. But the thing that I love is when sometimes, obviously, in theatre productions or dance productions, you get a cast into a village hall that haven't been involved with the tour booking, because they've just been cast to play that part, and they get there and you see that they're maybe a bit apprehensive or a bit unsure, or they're thinking what's going to happen here, and afterwards they're like, that was incredible. And we've had artists that have come as a cast member and have decided to then go on to make work themselves, specifically for the venues that we're working with, because it's changed their perception of that connection they can have so much.
Yes.
For me, I love it when the audience gets something and the village halls get something, but when it's trickling out into the further art community as well, I think that's something really special.
Yeah, amazing. How about you guys, Southwest?
Well, I know it's really a job that we don't always relish, but when we survey our audiences and when we talk to our audiences and when we see what they say about us and how they value what we do in villages, it's kind of humbling, and it is quite emotional sometimes when you see what people say about you, and when you ask people, when you sort of go to the audience and say, you know, our funding has been cut, or this or that, and can you help us? And they'll give you a book of stamps, or they'll give you some money for, you know, they'll pay more than their ticket, you know, small things that they do. It makes you realise that actually what you're doing, sit at your desk in an office, actually has real impact on people. And I can't get enough of that, really.
Yeah.
So I'm welling up just listening to Claire. I'm just a complete drip, but I just know exactly what you mean, because I know we're an arts organisation, but I also think it's a crucial social service, and in terms of ideas and connection and the viability and vibrancy of communities, it just all feeds into that. And the number of artists who come back and say that rural touring is the highlight, particularly artists who've never done any or who've worked in a more formal environment. They say it's one of the best done because of the heart. It's because of the heart, really.
Yeah.
I'll shut up. Sorry.
It's a good
No,
point.
please don't shut up. It's lovely. I think that is my favourite thing about rural touring, is that everybody that's involved in it, and the people, and the, like, going to village hall, and kind of like when I first started, I was very nervous about driving to the middle of nowhere, and there was grass in the middle of the roads, and I was like, oh my god, where am I going? And I got there, and the first thing they ask is, would you like a cup of tea? Do you want some cake? I was like, okay, this is all right, I'm going to be okay. And like learning that, oh, this village hall is also the post office, and it's the doctor's surgery, and it's we do all our Pilates here, and then we have our plumbing meetings here, and it's just being part of communities like dotted all around across Devon and Cornwall. It feels great.
And it's so equal. Like Village Halls Week obviously is celebrating everything that the Village Hall does, and for art, I think sometimes we go to these massive venues and we think this is so important, and we can get quite caught up in how important it is, but actually it's a leg that's supporting that community, along with the medical groups that are meeting there, or blood donation, and it just goes to show that all of these things are important for your community. So you need your art on a Saturday night, but you also need Zumba on a Thursday to keep you fit, and you need the bump and bounce class, and all of those things are equal. And for me, I think that's really important to remember.
Yeah, it is. And what a brilliant note to end on. So I just want to thank everybody, all you. Thank you so much for joining us and for telling us about your schemes and the magic of rural touring as well. So thank you to Sian, Imogen, Claire and Stephie, and happy Village Halls Week to you all.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.